Mike needs to go at 2, so let's just start right away. Okay. Hello everyone, welcome to Brewers September edition. I hope although there are only a few of us, but we can get valuable lessons from everyone's book. Okay. And without further ado, I would like to call Michael to share about his book, and I will share the questions in the chat box. But start with why you choose this book and what the book is.
All right, thank you, Mabibit. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So we meet again here. So the book today that I'm going to share is Someday is the Day. It's written by Matthew Dix. The first time I knew this book was from an email mailing list, something from Ali Abdal. It's like the productivity YouTuber or something. And I read about the quotes that he wrote on the email list. It was about the thing that we tend to think our time as in our block. So in a day, we have 24 hours. But in this book, like the author shares that minutes matter, even seconds matter. So the simplest thing is like we change the pattern in our brain, that instead of 24 hours, we can start with 440 minutes. So 1440 minutes instead of like 1 hour. But 1440 might be too extreme for us. So instead we can do the transitions. Instead of like 1 hour, we start with like a half hours block, instead like 30 minutes, or we can change later on to like 15 minutes block. Like in our Google Calendar, actually we can put the time block every 15 minutes. Like by default, it starts with 1 hour, but we can change like 15 or 30 minutes. So it will help like the tactical things, and slowly we need to start to change. For example, the meeting, instead of like, okay, let's meet at 2, let's do on the invitation, we have the meeting 2 till 2:30, for example. So that's the first takeaway that I really get. And I chose this because this book was really really suitable for me in these situations, because I have lots of things that I initially planned a decade ago, but I haven't realized until today. I haven't started. And it was addressed in this book also. My biggest fear was about the perfection, because I tend to compare myself with which I haven't started yet until today, until this second. And I compare to people who has been in the business for 5 years or even a decade. So I've never put the in my thought that I will never win the competition. So what should I? Why should I do that in the first thing? So I just ignored that. But the book mentioned that the perfection is just the mask. So this is the saying from the book that I really like. About the perfection. Sorry. Okay, yeah. The perfection is a symptom of your fear of failure, or your tendency to procrastinate. That's the first. And the second, almost no one is doing anything perfectly, so just join the crowd. And the third, just starting something, as imperfect as it may be, already makes you better than the vast majority of people who never start anything. So that's my best key lesson from this book, because I'm very afraid with perfection. And these 3 things from the book already answer my perfection's obsessions, which is too bad. What's your favorite quote from the book? This is very good. If it won't matter tomorrow, don't let it matter today. So just ignore it. If it won't matter tomorrow, just don't make it matter today. Don't let it matter today. Anything you don't like about the book? So far, I love this book because this book really addressed all the things, like from the beginning till the end. Like the first thing is about the time, and then the second part is about taking the leap, and the third about the support, and the fourth is about living the life. However, I found that some of the chapter is too much. I mean, it is not important. I can feel that the writer just write some parts in order to make the book thicker, because compared to lots of golden nuggets, there are some like very unimportant things. I mean, that you can get only the story that can be eliminated from the book completely. I mean, yep. So if I were to rate this book, I will give 4.5, because I love this book so much, and the words and the language is very blatant. I mean, like plak-plakan. So it's very obvious and quite makes sense. All the writer says in this book is quite makes sense, and it really encouraged me to really start the journey. So yeah, that's all from my part, my book. Thank you.
Mike, before I open the floor for questions, what does the quote mean? The one you said earlier, what does it mean?
Oh yeah, this is about we tend to do. I mean, there are two things in this world that say just focus on what you really. If it's not hell yeah, then it's no. But there's the other part in this book also say, if you don't say yes a lot enough, then I mean the door won't open for you. So this book addressed two things differently, meaning that you need to be there to say no. I don't want it. I don't join. I don't come to the party, etc., etc. You have to say no, but at the same time, you need to try and you need to say yes. So in this book, the conclusion for those juggling things, if it won't matter tomorrow, don't let it matter today. So just do the things that might matter in the future. Just try and just say yes. You say yes to the things that that might open the door for you, but if the things exactly doesn't matter, so just don't waste the time on that. For example, the owner.
How do we know whether things will matter tomorrow or not?
If you don't know, then you might challenge and say yes. But if you know completely, just say no. I mean, don't be hesitant. Don't be like shy and okay, yeah, I will do it. Okay, oh, no problem. Okay, I will accompany you, just for the sake like sungkan. I don't know.
The reason I ask is because, you know, the way Steve Jobs took the calligraphy class, the famous story, and it did not matter that time. Like people, why are you taking calligraphy class? It doesn't have any benefits or something. But as it turned out, years later, it was beneficial for him to design MacBook, things like that. That's why I was wondering, it won't matter tomorrow. Don't make it matter today. It's a little bit tricky because we don't know which things we do today will actually matter in the future. So that's probably the puzzle for me.
Yeah, and the owner gives the example when he say yes to be a DJ in the wedding, which leads like where he is now. If he had not agreed on becoming the DJ, then maybe this is not his way. So the saying no part is like the saying no for the sake is for courtesy. I mean, for the sake of the like sungkan. So just say no. But for the things we need to explore if we are not sure yet, because in this example, for example, we do my job, for example, in this part, but in the evening I ice sculpting thing or to other thing, it might affect and it can complete each other, which we don't know yet the effect. So just say yes, but say no to the things that really don't matter. That's so this is interesting because usually when I read book, it is either one view that I read. So either say yes, 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 and or the other book or from the writer, it says say no, just say no to anything, like eliminate anything, everything, eliminate everything. But this book, like they put the balance, and so that's the conclusion. It's like say yes and say no. So that's why I love this book. Like, okay, this is the answer that I got. Like conclude all my previous books that either side. So thanks this book. Thanks to this book. Yeah. So in the end, the answer is depends. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's open questions. There you go, Donald.
Yeah. Not questions, but before I forget, I would like to share 2 quotes that I remember from what Michael shared. So first one is about perfection. And I remember I read a book, I think the title is Chaos Monkey. It's about someone who worked at Facebook. And at Facebook, they have a motto under Mark Zuckerberg, and the motto is done is better than perfect. Done is better than perfect. So that is one of the motto of. And the second quote that I remember from what Michael shared with us, this one might not agree with the thesis of that book, but I learned this from a movie from true story titled Lone Survivor about Navy SEAL operation in Afghanistan. And in the opening, I think trailer, it says everything worth doing is worth overdoing. So because Michael said about what matters tomorrow, do not do what doesn't matter tomorrow, something like that. So
Everything what? Sorry, I don't know.
Everything worth doing is worth overdoing. However, that might actually strive for perfection. That might be a case, but that is one of the Navy SEALs motto. What is worth doing is worth overdoing. Meaning they have to do the best in it. Yeah, just my comment.
Got it. Thank you. Done is better than perfect. I mean, we have the certain baseline. I really agree, but I have difficulties applying that because done is better than perfect. We tend to like this just okay, just the like minimum level of check, or how good is the minimum good? I mean, what's the score to be able to like to just publish or to just accept? Do you have idea? Because until today, like I'm still confused because I read the book from Danny Santoso as well. He mentioned done is better than perfect. That's the title of the book as well. But I still haven't gotten the line because they mentioned in this very strict market, if you're just normal, then nothing. I mean, because everyone is striving to be the best. Top 5%, Tai Lopez says.
Yeah, I think that's because of the kind of business that Facebook is in at that time and also now. They are in software industry, right? Meaning making website. So they have a concept in that industry called MVP, and minimum viable product. Meaning that instead of trying to make a perfect product from the start, it's better to get something in the real world and get feedback from the customers. So even if it is not perfect according to our idea, but if it is good enough, and the term is minimum viable product or MVP, and we better, yes, it is in lean startup, and then you put it out there. But it doesn't apply if you work for space industry, for example. In that case, you have to be perfect first time because dealing with human lives, right? I think that depends on the industry, but in my opinion, for most industries, especially nowadays, because more and more things are digitized, this applies. Then it's better than.
Got it. Thank you.
Now in this cancel culture, it's really difficult to make even the smallest mistake. Like people now expect everyone to be perfect. You know how even the smallest mistake committed by someone 15 years ago can ruin their career now, although the person have changed. So that's, I think maybe someone should write a book about that, how that cancel culture can make people keep the perfectionist, inhumanly perfectionist, I would say.
So that's why in human that's why now in the world, like everything becomes 5-star standard, everything becomes perfect. So only, for example, in my company, only to make videos, like there are lots of people behind it. I mean, those kind of specialized things, I can see the trend is becoming more and more obvious. So as an individual, I honestly confused. Can I start? I mean, can we still work as a lone wolf nowadays, or no? I think we can do that anymore. Either we can be at the top managing all the things, or we can be the part of the specialized skills. Sept.
My comment on that, actually, the answer, I believe, is yes. And that comes, the idea comes from a book by Thomas Friedman. It's called The World is Flat, an old book in 2006. And he said that there are three phases of globalization. Globalization 1, globalization 2, and 3. First one, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the first one is in 1900s with the railroads. So railroads becoming widespread, and people ship goods all around the world with ships and railroads. And the second one is about 1980s, if I'm not mistaken, with the computer. And the third one is after the internet, so in the 21st century. So what's different is that in the 21st century, individual can amplify their impact thanks to the internet. So just one example, I can sell something online, especially if it is a digital product, and I do not need to physically attend my shop because it is open 24/7. And all the sales, all the taxes are handled automatically. So I can work on my own and can have global audience and also global competitor.
All right. Yep. Scary. Thank you. Yeah, but we still can hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, I also have an opinion on the specialization. Sometimes we think in the progress of time with technology more advanced, we tend to be more specialized. But also this technology opened up for us to be more broader in our specialization. Maybe the most obvious example is we see in the publishing industries. Few decades ago, we know that if we, for example, we want to publish an article of the magazine, to produce that single article, we will need a writer, a typesetter, a photographer, then also an art director and many other director on that. And then in the advance of technology, especially we got computer, then we got the desktop publishing, then all those kind of specialization can be done by one person. So even today, one person can have all this specialization and they can master it themselves, while not sacrificing any level of specialization. So they can create the same level of quality as the previous decade people, a team of specialists do that. So there is also when the technology can involve on how we define specialization.
Makes sense. Yes, in a way, until it becomes the new standard of, for example, like it was like in the past, like not many people can publish a book or can publish the news, but nowadays lots of books, lot of fiction books, lot of abundance, but also the quality. I mean, not the quality, but the quantity compared to the quality was kind of not as high as it was, because like because everyone can do it, so smaller barrier and entry barrier. So yeah, that's the thing that makes it just change. I mean, that's kind of cycle. More people, but still less good quality or less top quality content. Like TikTok, like everyone now can be their own station TV, can have their own broadcasting system.
I have a question
Only
for
that, I
Michael.
guess. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Suppose I'd like to speak. Sometimes okay. I think the problem with the everyone can vote for whatever is supposed to be go up. That drives the low quality contents to go up because people naturally like something that is fun and entertaining, things like that. So it's very receh, in bahasa. So I think that's another challenge.
It is a challenge when you try to speak with a noisy background. Yes.
Donald, sorry, I cut you off. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question for Michael. Maybe Michael still have a few minutes left. So from the book, what do you think is the most applicable idea for you in the near future? So something that you can apply maybe today or tomorrow, maybe also for us.
Done is better than perfect. That's still on the dead end because I still not sure yet like how good is good. But the key takeaway I got is those three things about perfectionism. This give me courage that okay, Michael, you're not that good, and just accept it because everyone is also not good in the beginning. But by doing the volume, huge numbers of works, you get better in time. That's the best quotes that I can get. But like deep inside me, I still have the fear actually. Like, so that's why I'm not sure yet. Yeah, but the time. The time works. I mean, instead of 1 hour chunk time, I now tend to split into 30 minutes chunk time. So whenever I meet the bank, for example, like meeting with external parties, sometimes I state like 30 minutes, like half. And the meetings got more efficient. It gets better. Yep.
Didn't the book mention anything about expectations? Like I know a lot of people who do not start doing something because people already expected too much out of them, so they decide not to produce anything yet. That happens to a lot of artists, a lot of musicians. When the pressure or the expectations are high, they tend to postpone doing anything.
Oh, I haven't got any idea about that part yet from the book.
Like Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson did not want to hold any concert anymore before leading to his death because of the pressure. He was a star in 80s and early 90s. Now people still remember that era, so that stopped him from holding more concerts because of the perfection, comparing himself to the past and also the expectation from the surrounding.
Got it. Yeah. I haven't got the idea about that from the book. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Yeah. There's a guy also there. Right. Yeah, Mbak Pipit. Got it.
Okay. Is there any more questions? That's it. All right. Thank you, Michael. Yeah.
Can we take photo first?
Yes. Okay. Let's take photo. I don't have my book with me, but let's just okay. I will edit them in later. If you have your book, can you hold it up? Okay. Full economy. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, got it. Right, thank you, Michael. I think he has to go at 2. See you.
Yeah, I need to go to doctor. Thank you. Sorry, not attend to.
He applies his half an hour principle just now. He came for half an hour.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
See you
you,
next time,
Michael.
Michael. Bye.
Thank you,
Now
guys.
let's
Thank you, Donald. Thank you, Mbak Pipin.
thank you. Let's go to Donald then.
Nominator. Oh, itu. Okay, me first. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So the book that I would like to share today is titled Sept Mayors. I don't know whether I may not pronounce the name right, but it Mayors Memoir, A Life in Computer Games. So this is a biography, a memoir from someone who is a very famous game developer. So if you ever play Civilization, one of the most famous computer games, he is the creator of Civilization. And the question from the chat, what's your book and why did you choose it? So I choose this because I know his games. Simply because I know his games, so I'm interested to know how he thinks. Also, I actually started I used to make games myself in the past. So I'm interested to know how this kind of people think, and also to enrich my repertoire, maybe if that is the right word, because I would like to get as many perspectives as possible. And I've never read the perspective of a game designer about creativity and thinking. I want to broaden my perspective by including game designer. Those are the reasons for why I choose this book. What is the best key lesson from the book? Now, it is difficult to choose just one best, because this is a singular, the best key lesson from the book. So I don't think I can summarize it into one, but there are quite a lot key lessons from the book, and it's mainly about creativity. For example, you need to have a broad interest, because Sid Meier had this original idea for these games. Nowadays become common, like civilization, but back in the day it was a breakthrough, because nobody thought about making a game about the entire human civilization from Stone Age to the Space Age. So it was, and he got it because he had passions in multiple areas. So he mentioned specifically history and art and science, and he borrowed ideas from those. So the first lesson is that if we want to be creative, we need to have passion and interest outside of our field. Because if we just have interest in our own field, then we just borrow from other practitioners in the field, right? So that's nothing new. If you want something new, you need to have passion outside of our interest, and that will give us ideas. That is the first thing. And the second thing that I learned from this is that we need, and this is maybe a bit against what Michael mentioned about specialization. Actually, Sid Meier advised those who want to be creative, especially game designers, to be self-sufficient. So that is something that I learned. We need to be self-sufficient, meaning to not depend on other people in order to make a creative work. So he gave an example. He is a computer programmer mainly, but he also can draw, and he also can do music. So and when he cannot do 3D design, he taught himself. We can to do it. So he doesn't need someone else to make prototype. If he has a game idea, he can make it himself. He doesn't need anyone else. And then he can test, is it fun or not? If not, he can tweak it without waiting for any other people. So that is something that is maybe against some trends today, the word specialization, because he actually advice for being self-sufficient. So that you can creative without waiting or depending on anyone. And later, after he get the idea, he has a team, and he can explain one of the things that I learned from the book is that if you want to convince other people, instead of trying to use persuasive words, let them try it by themselves. So it's usually in games, right? It's difficult to explain. I want to make a game like this and this and this. This approach is you make a prototype and let people try it themselves. Is it fun or not? So they can feel it themselves. So that is also something unique because usually when we talk about persuasion, we talk about the power of words. But in his opinion, it is better to let people experience it themselves. And then they can know, oh yes, this is without having to use persuasion. So it's another lesson. And another thing is that we need to be open-minded. So I think there is a question from the, what is your favorite quote from the book? Let me find it. Yeah. So this is one of several quotes from the book, but I think if I have to choose one favorite, maybe I never try to cram something into a specific game template. Start with something that is interesting all on its own and figure out what kind of game it's meant to be. So we have preconception. For example, game has to be like this and like this and like this, but he has the opposite view. He tried to find something fun. This is another quote, just right after that, the same chapter. Find the fun doesn't just mean take your topic and figure out what's fun about it. It also means go out into the world and find a topic that has never been turned into a game before. So again, this is a lesson about creativity. If you want to be creative, original, not just trying to copycat someone else, then we need to try to find from the outside world that has never been applied to our field. And then when we apply it, we should apply it without a preconception. So for example, an adventure game must have this and this and this. No. Instead, he used that concept and think, with this concept, forget about all I know about game. With this concept alone, that is new, how can I give it life, regardless of the existing games? So that is also a kind of thinking for me. Oh, yeah, so you don't need to use this book. Instead, you start with this original concept and think about how it can has life on its own preconception. So those are some things. Anything you don't like about the book? No, this is a difficult question for me. I rarely do that. And number 5, if you were to rate it, what's the rating out of 4? I think 4.5 if I have to give a rate. Because it's a very good book on creativity, and especially it is from someone who is not a household name outside of gaming. So it's quite original for me. A new perspective. Because if Picasso or Da Vinci a bit overused maybe in terms of discussion, but game design is a bit underused. So this is new or novel source for me. Okay, so that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. I still had to Google the name first when you mentioned it.
Okay, I will. Yeah, while waiting for Pipit, I would like to add one more, if I may. And I just remember one. This is another thing that I really like from him. Wait, I will. Okay. Most of my games I haven't even played since the day they ship because I've already moved on to the next exciting things. The quote, I don't mind speaking as a witness to that era because he started in 1990s, 1980s actually. But I'm always careful to root my conversation in what we are doing now and where we are going next. Once you start talking about your own legacy, you are dead, and I am definitely not dead. if I connect it with what people just said about Michael Jackson, what Michael Jackson did is the exact opposite of what Mayers do. Because from what I heard just now, maybe I'm wrong, yeah, but from I heard just now, Michael Jackson had this burden to meet the expectation of the past, because in the past he had done this and that and that, and then he had to meet that expectation. So the past became a burden for him. But actually here, the approach of Sydney is different. He doesn't want to be defined by his past. So despite having very popular game, he wants to focus on the next exciting thing, not the past. And he wants to talk to audience about the current and future projects, not the past projects. So I think that is also something that is very important. If you want to stay creative, we must not let past glory, if I may use that term, find us. Instead, we need to open our mind to new possibilities ahead, not from the past. Okay, thank you.
Question for the chat box.
A question from Ipit, right? No, no, no. I no longer make games. Actually, I would like to, but yeah, don't have time. Too many interesting things.
The fact that you read about one of the game modules, there must be a reason behind it, right? Not just out of the blue.
The reason for what? Sorry?
For reading this book, I don't think it's because just out of the blue. Especially usually biography is kind of long and thick, right? So the reading. So why is it going to be applicable in your life if we don't have any more interest in games?
Oh, I'm still interested in games, but not that I don't make games. So gamer just play game, but game developer make games. So I no longer make games, but I'm still interested in the gaming world itself. And Sid Meier is very famous. I think one of the most famous. The other name that I can think of is John Carmack. Maybe one of the two most famous game designers in the world. So because of that, I'm excited. So it is similar to maybe if someone studied karate and karate master, maybe not a household name, but a karate master from Okinawa write a book, they will be excited. So that is the kind of excitement I have, because I'm interested in this world. So, and the name is very well known. So I'm interested in reading.
Do you have questions for Donald?
Yeah. So he said that he don't want to be defined by his past, but what I see from him, he made a lot of diverse game in the past, maybe in the 90s, many of game, but there is less now. But then he struck a success in the Civilization series, and I think on until currently, it seemed like he just tried to recycle his success in the Civilization series. That's why he continued to make a new game, and I cannot think that he published a new game other than the Civilization series currently. I think in the last 10 years or so, he only recycled this Civilization series. Unlike other successful game designer, like I can think Hideo Kojima, he continued to make a hit game with new title, with new different mechanic, new story, and new plot, and how it's compared to and how it's aligned with what he said, the actual and the one he said in the book.
Yeah, thank you. So I don't know Sydney.
That's the answer for number 4. What you don't like about the book.
Yeah, actually, I'm a big fan of Civilization. I played, I think, since I'm in the elementary school. It's almost 20 years I played the series.
Do you play the Civilization 6?
The last Civilization I played, 6 is the one released in 2019. Yeah, I think that's one.
2016.
2016. Yeah. The last time I played Civilization is around 2019. But a big fan of it since
Okay.
mid 2000s.
I actually stopped playing Civilization because it's too addicting for me. So, like a few years back, I played it and I played for like 5 hours straight and couldn't get anything done. So I stopped playing it because it's too addicting. And actually, that's one thing that he mentioned in the book. From interesting, so there are 3 levels he mentioned: interesting, compelling, and then addicting. So the highest level is addicting. Back to the question. Actually, he makes some games, but not as popular as Civilization. He mentioned it in the book, but I forget. I think he points it somewhere. But yes, the most successful one is still Civilization. But he does try some new projects, and he mentioned some failures too. For example, one of the thing is he tried to make quite recently some game about dinosaurs, but after 6 months it failed because he couldn't figure out how to make the game fun. So after 6 months working on it, failed. So maybe Sid Meier is a bit like, I can give an example, it's like Albert Einstein. So Einstein is very famous for his work in 1905, special relativity, and 1915, general relativity. But after that, he kept working on new things. But those work, many of them ended up in failures, and none of them became famous.
No, no, no. That actually Einstein got the Nobel Prize is for his other work other than relativity, although not the case. So that's the misconception about Einstein. His later works actually was successful, but not as break as breakthrough as relativity. So he actually got Nobel Prize later on in his older life. Not giving his bio.
Yeah, Edo can correct me because Edo has physics background,
Yeah.
but from what I learned, actually it's not because photoelectric, if I'm not mistaken, so he got
Yeah,
Nobel for photoelectric, but that's not because photoelectric is more groundbreaking, but because it's very difficult to prove relativity.
Yeah, because even relativity can only become a very strong theory very recently after we sent the gravity probe around 2006. Only until then we can, got to prove not totally prove it, but get so many proof come out of it to support the theory. Got a very strong proof for the theory. And the gravity probe only launched in 2006, and then another proof coming from the black hole. The recently we see the black hole wave.
With the current telescope, with the current technology and telescope, that time it was not possible, right? But my point is, thank God that he was able to continue working. Otherwise, he wouldn't get the Nobel Prize because he did not get the Nobel Prize for his work on relativity.
Yeah, but the most famous failure, again, Edo can correct me, is his failure in dealing with quantum mechanics. So he had a famous debate with Niels Bohr. And long story short, instant conclusion is not correct regarding quantum mechanics. So that is the kind of failure. But when I read the biography, he mentioned that, well, I'm paraphrasing, I'm already well known for my relativity and the book, so I can afford to venture to the unknown and make failures. So in short, that's what he said. The younger scientists cannot afford this luxury because they still have to make a meaning for themselves. So in the sense, that's what he said. So in this case, it's quite similar to Sid Meier in that Sid Meier actually tried new things, but many of them end in failure, not as successful as Civilization. But yeah, it doesn't mean that he doesn't try. He tries, but not as successful. Yeah, feel free to correct me. Yeah.
And I have loud tapping sound behind me.
Are you at home?
Yes, and my house is having a major construction right now. So it will finish in 1 month. Yes, okay.
I think there's nothing more. Then we can move on. Right?
Okay, thank you, Dono. Yes. Now let's go to Edo. Please present about Edo.
Okay, good afternoon. So the book that I would like to bring here is titled Fortune Makers. The subtitle is The Leaders Creating China Great Global Companies. So this book is a compiled interview and a study with four executive of the one of China's biggest private companies, Lenovo, Haier, Frankie, and Alibaba. So what is the best lesson I get from here is that the dynamic of culture, the nationality, the even geography have a very got a very distinct way that result in every management need to develop their own way there. So in this case is China. China has some very different aspect than USA. So when they start to reform their economy in the late 80s until the early 2000s, they come without any framework that they can use to set up a new private company. Unlike in the USA, for example, they have a consultant firm and ventures, investment capital, and all that can they use to as a framework to start a new private company. But in China, there is no such kind of thing. So all this executive, all those business leader need to come with their own way to start up their enterprise. That's why the dynamic in China, the culture of their people also need to accommodate that. They need to define a new way, a new philosophy rather than what is currently available in the West. That's why different culture in the world also have its own way. For example, the American have its American way defined by their innovation and their American corporate, and then we have a Japan way with their discipline, with their lean, and then we have India way, European way, and here is this book talk about the China way, and the China way is just very recently developed in the last few decades. Unlike the American way, that is developed for more than 100 years. We know since the boom of oil, railroad, and steel industries, they continue to develop their enterprise way, the strategy of their business. And the China, they only have a few decades, while also they need to compete with other global companies from the world. And miraculously, they successful to come out of it and currently many of these firms become the biggest in the industry in the world. Like the Haier is the biggest appliances manufacturer in the world. Lenovo is the biggest personal computer manufacturer in the world, and there is Alibaba, the one who go to the New York stock market as the biggest biggest initial offering. So what is different from the China is first, it's not simply they just need to ditch their old communist way to be successful as that. First, what the government did during the reformation is they do not simply take out the old communist way and reform it with the new capitalistic way, unlike the West what did in the Eastern Europe. That's why if simply removing the communism will make them prosper, then why not such kind of thing not happen in the East Europe? But rather they choose a gradual way. They experiment with new law and regulation. Then if there is something deviating, then they change again the law and the regulation. There is also one of biggest problem to the early entrepreneur in the China. They get a new law and regulation. They set up their enterprise based on their regulation. Then they become prosper. Then next year the government think that, oh, this kind of regulation will let people to exploit the working class. Then they take out this law and they can even get all these entrepreneurs to jail because they go against the socialism. So all of these entrepreneur in the of this early entrepreneur need to think their way to be versatile, to be agile, and also to become an honest entrepreneur while not exploiting to be great and exploiting the working class and get the windfall profit. Instead, they do it one small step at a time and do any change when necessary. That is also what is different from the one in the West. In the USA, for example, we can see that an entrepreneur start by developing a novel product. Then they start to develop how to manufacture them, then how to distribute them, then how to market them. But in China, the way is the opposite side. They start from how to sell. So most of this company they start as a distributor of a foreign product. They start to how to sell the product, how to market it, how to distribute that. Then they figure it out how to manufacture that product. Then after that, they move to a higher step of how to develop their own product. There is, for example, the case that happened with the Lenovo. They start as a distributor of a foreign computer brand like HP and Dell. Then they start to develop their own product. They do many trial and error, and they do not eager to change their strategy midway. If in the West, or especially in the America, any change in the strategy will means also change in the organization. For example, if the company start to look at global market, they will change the CEO into the one that is experienced in the global market. If they need to have a more noble product, better product, they will change the executive to the one who is very familiar with product and all. But in China, there is a culture of a big boss. So they have those who is a big figure to be at the top of the executive. For example, their founder is also acting as their CEO most of the company in the most of company years. So all these managers, or they say the lieutenant of those executive do not have to bother about speaking to bother about answering the shareholder and following what the demand from the shareholder. Unlike the Western counterpart, they often get just busy about answering the shareholder demand and not focusing on actually running the company. But in China, since the biggest figure in the company is at the top of the company organization itself, so they do not need to answer the shareholder. That is, so they can focus on running the company.
Is that a good practice?
That what is the favorite quote from the book? So my favorite quote from the book is the one said by Alibaba. So he said this quote when there is a fierce fighting between Alibaba and eBay in China. At the time, eBay is several times bigger than Alibaba. So Jack Ma at the time says, eBay may be a shark in the ocean, but I'm a crocodile in the Yangtze River. So that means that he knows more about local. So if a global company try to compete with him in China, they need to know better about local situation, but nobody can know better about local situation than the locals itself. Then the next question is anything you don't like about the book. This book is it's more like an academic book, so it's not quite an easy book to read. So yeah, it will be sometimes feel dull and boring, but the content is quite rich. Only sometimes feel repeatable. The rating for this, I think I would try it 4 out of 5.
Yeah, question for Edo.
Yeah.
You mentioned about the top figure doesn't need to answer to the stakeholders and staff, right?
Yes.
He can focus on running the company. Is that a good practice in business or not?
In my opinion, sometimes what the demand from the shareholder is not aligned with the need of the company itself. For example, the shareholder, what they want is just a small windfall profit and all, but the company itself maybe need to grow, maybe in a slower pace, but in a bigger frame, in the long-term view. But the shareholder itself, they may need to have a windfall profit in a small time frame and all. So when the managers and the executive do not need to answer to this demand from the shareholder, they can focus with the actual goal of the company itself in the long-term goal instead of the small-term goal.
That means that really depends on the capacity and the skills of the leader of the company, right?
Yeah, correct.
That also presents a huge risk. What if the person is not good enough? So at the same time, do not consider other people's opinion. So I think that's kind of a risky situation, but probably it works. It's like a, what is it called? Untung-untungan in bahasa.
Yeah.
Ya kalau orangnya capable. If
Yeah.
not, that's a dangerous situation, right?
Yeah. That's why in China they tend to have a big boss figure. So this big boss figure is like the one who feel the very owner of the company itself. So we cannot doubt we cannot doubt his ownership to the company. So we cannot doubt his dedication to the company.
So what happened to those IPO, like capital? If they get the capital from a lot of people, are they still going to operate like that?
Of course, there is an obligation. Once they go to IPO, there is an obligation for this. But since, for example, the Alibaba, I think so far Jack Ma still held the CEO of this company. So I think so long that this figure is still at the head of the company, they will do the same way, unless one day this CEO will be changed by the one chosen by the shareholder to reflect what the shareholder want, to have more, let's say, professional. They say more professional executive. The regular practice in the West, where they put executive based on their skill rather than their background.
Jack Ma resigned in 2019.
Oh no, I'm not updated about it.
Yeah, it was viral that time because it was right before the pandemic. So what a good timing, you know. He resigned in 2019 from Alibaba. He's now only enjoying the money.
Yeah, I have a question for you too.
Yeah.
And how will you compare it with the situation in Indonesia? Because from what I know, in Indonesia, the majority shareholder like for Project and Tokopedia and Traveloka, the major unicorns, many of the major shareholders are from overseas. and the founder actually only have small minority of the shares. So how would you compare the climate or potential of Indonesian businesses, especially the startups, with the Chinese ones like Alibaba and Baidu?
Yeah, regarding the startup in Indonesia, I think they very much leaning with the philosophy of the startup in the West. So they take example like their management and all. They take example from the West, the practice in the West. So I see that the potential of this is will reflect much of what happening in the US with very fast-paced management change and fast-paced development. Try to look for windfall profit, small-term profit. Then about the company, last thing we see that in the US, one by one, the startups start to fail. And I also forecast that this is what will be the situation that we will have in Indonesia.
Yeah, yeah, you just remind me, and one of the advantages of having outside investors, if we can burn their money,
Yeah,
because they put money into the startups like Gojek, Goto, the stock they actually a lot like tens, like more than 10 trillions. So a lot of money that they burn. I mean the loss is so high. And what about in China? Because they seem not to have not to want to have venture capital. Do they also have this kind of policy of losing money for a lot of money for many years, or they want to they strive to become profitable, or how?
in China at the time they burn money with a prospect. So when they get an investment, like for example, the Alibaba, they get investment from Yahoo. They say that they can operate at 3 years without making any profit, just fine. They burn the money. And after that, they are start to look for money, and it's easy for them. But in Indonesia, I think the situation is now they just continue to burn the money as long as they still get the stream of money coming.
But we wonder why we're still poor.
Yeah. Keep it. I ask quite a lot of questions. That's fine. And my other question is, how much does protectionism from the government help these companies? Because, for example, like Baidu, they benefit because Google has limited presence and YouTube cannot enter. There are so many foreign websites and applications. Facebook cannot enter China. What do you think about the rules of this? In Indonesia, the government do not limit outside websites and applications, right? Like in China. So does that play a big role in the rise of Alibaba by
Actually, the governmental protection is sword with two sides. It's work both way. In one side, they help the companies thrive against other global company. In other side, they also limit the capability of the company itself. That's why most of this company need to evolve, need to be very dynamic in changing their own strategy. For example, many of the biggest company in China, they are already operating for a few decades, but only in 2006, China have law regulating private ownership. So most of these founder, they do not have law that can say that they own this company. So there is also one thing that limiting from the protection of this government. I think once the government also do some slight change on the regulation that loosen up this protection, they also need to this company also need to adapt to this regulation change. But not surely that will we know that any future change will make this company less competitive to other company or not. It depends also on the direction of change from this company. Even with the in the time of Alibaba, the government do not have many benefit to Alibaba because of only because Alibaba is a local company. Mostly, the most competitive advantage that Alibaba have is from their own strategy itself, rather than from what's supported by the government. So when Alibaba first operating in China, eBay is already operating in China, and eBay is already a big company in China at that time. That's also happened with the Uber. When Uber, there is a Didi Chuxing, a local company. Uber is already a big company operating in China, and the government let Uber operating without much restriction in China, or at least with same restriction that their local competitor have. But still, the strategy turns out that the local company can strive better.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you,
I
AJ.
think Chinese also very nationalist, right? So although they do like branded stuff, like Dior, all of those things, but when it comes to there are two options, whether Alibaba or eBay, they tend to choose the one that operated by China, or Didi and Uber, for example. Now almost no Uber, I guess. Only Didi. Yeah. So their nationalism is very strong. So that makes the competitors from other countries also find it really hard to dominate now that the local competitors enter the scene.
Yeah, I have another question. What about the opposite side? So my previous question was about protectionism and how it might benefit the company. But what about changing regulation that can threat the company's existence? So for example, maybe a couple of years ago, Alibaba and Group, and Alibaba wanted to do IPO and canceled at the last minute, and it was a big news because it was a high-profile IPO. And also quite recently, there were two touring companies, and the government suddenly make a rule that students must go home to have balanced life, something like that, and not just go to tutoring schools. And all these tutoring schools just drop the stock. And also suddenly the government say students must not play games too much, and suddenly the Tencent stocks drop. So what about this kind of just a win for the government that threat the existence of companies?
Yeah, there is also the biggest threat for entrepreneurship in China. So there is a story in the earlier Reformation. So before China do this to proliferate entrepreneurship, they limit that a private entrepreneur must have maximum 7 employees, because more than 7 employees there is a high chance of exploitation of the working class. So they try to loosen up the regulation. Then in some region, they start to make people start to have their own entrepreneurship. They make a workshop. They see what kind of commodity there is in demand at that. Then they start to manufacture that commodity. Then they apply those new regulation that is coming from the government. At the time they allow for sales commission. Then they allow for manpower change when the manpower not up to the performance requirement. But then after 1 year, those entrepreneurs become make a lot of profit. They become very rich very fast. Then the government see that, and they think that what the practice done by this entrepreneur is against socialism. Then they put those entrepreneurs at jail. So there is the situation in China. That's why many entrepreneur need to think long term. They cannot see a chance for a very big profit in a short term. They also need to make a good connection with the government and all the stakeholder, because entrepreneurship is still a risky activity in China.
But all of those big companies, none of them are owned by private. Or
Yes, yes. Many of it is private ownership now.
so
Only
what year was it?
to
What
the
year they changed the regulation?
they they start to reform their economic policy since last around 1988 and 87, but they do it gradually, and only until 2006 they have a law regulating private ownership. So before that, private ownership still a folk thing. So government cannot cannot support your ownership to some kind of entity. For example, like the Lenovo. Lenovo started as a spin-off from a company from the government agency, like a government venture. Then it take 20 years for the founder to claim ownership to Lenovo, and he only got 1.2% stake on the company share of the one that he built himself.
So everything else must have the government stock in it, right?
Yeah. But currently, I think the situation already changed. Maybe 20 years ago, there is like 60% all of the entrepreneurship owned by government. Now it's become less, maybe only 20% or 30%.
It's 40, I heard the last time.
40.
Must be at least government capital. Oh, but by the way, guys, you know about the PSE from Cominfo, right? PSE,
Yeah,
I think that's a form of protectionism.
yeah, that's a
Yeah, and you know the backlash actually comes from Indonesia itself, not from the. So I think Indonesia has been trying to put some protectionism, although with the cover of taxes. So they want the foreign companies to pay taxes, right? Yeah, any more questions, Donald?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I hope during my presentation there's no loud sound, but if suddenly I turn off my mic, then you know why. Okay. So the book I'm sharing that now is Poor Economics. For Poor Economics, the radical rethinking of the way to fight global poverty. The reason I read this book is because I bought this book for a while now after Matt suggested about this book, and I saw it laying around and I just read it. And I also presented this in my other book club. So this is the reason why I read this, Poor Economics. Interesting is actually the writer, he get it Darren Asimov's book, but not Why Nations Fail. This book, Economic Origins of Dictatorship and Democracy, is the book that Poor Economics is trying to negate at least some parts of it. Yeah. So it's connected to my favorite writer, Darren Asimov. And the next question is, what's the best key lesson from the book? The best key lesson from the book is, then I think it's nothing new, but it's how the government management skill is actually everything, particularly about the rule of law. Actually, the one that has the biggest impact on whether or not a certain country can lift itself out of poverty. Okay. So if people have to worry about any time of the day, people can just rob them. Any time of the day, the government can just take over their business, like the one in China. Then people cannot do any economic activities with concentrating on that, right? So in the talks a lot about the case studies from India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Indonesia. So I'm really happy that so many is, first of all, there's someone called Muhammad Yunus. Muhammad Yunus won the Nobel Prize in economics around 20 years ago. Actually, he won Nobel simple idea. Simple idea. People were not trusted to get a loan, right? That time because banks think like, how would they pay for it? They will just take the money and then escape, or claiming bankruptcy or something like that. So Muhammad Yunus came with an idea. Village, or although they have really close relationship with each other, with neighbors. So the way he did it is he loaned some money to a group of people instead of just one. So not David and Michael. So they give us a sum of money, and we have to mutual together. Every first of the month, we have to come up with 2 million rupiah, no matter what. So this will make them actually pay on time. So that was not a breakthrough in terms of idea. It was a simple idea, but it managed to make people actually abiding to the installment, basically. Because people in the village, they feel, oh, I feel bad to other people if I miss my payment, because they have to cover for me. So they will do anything they can to actually pay on time. And that makes a lot of people benefit from this microfinance loan. And then he managed to lift a lot of people out of poverty in Bangladesh that time. So that's how he got the Nobel Prize in economics. So I think the best lesson is sometimes the solution is already there. We thought it was not going to work, but we have to give it a try. It's like what Muhammad Yunus did that time. And this book offered a lot of different strategies to cure poverty, but in my opinion, most of them actually nothing new. So whenever he said like there has to be insurance paid by the government to protect the people, like, of course, of course, like education. He said one of the best way to get people out of poverty is to cover their health, education, and there's one more I forgot. Failure from disasters, like crops failure from disasters such as flooding or earthquakes. The government must give them some type of insurance. When things like that happen, then the government will cover the crops failure, things like that. For me, that's like, of course, if a certain government have enough money to do it, then probably they would have done it. But it's easy in theory, but I think in practice it's really difficult to do if we really wanted to cure poverty by doing that. So I think the best key lessons is a lot of different strategies proposed by them is almost nothing new, but the government sometimes do not have the political will to do that. Another example that he proposed to cure poverty is mandatory saving. So he wants everyone to have mandatory saving, including no matter how poor you are. So how to make people want to save money is the government have to cover the admin costs, biaya administrasi, which is very simple, right? But people tend to say, oh, I only have a little money, now the government, now the bank have to cut the administration cost. It's a big turn off for a lot of people. So to make them excited to and abide to saving, mandatory saving, the government must cover the administration cost of it. So basically the mandatory saving is almost like a pension, but they can take it almost anytime they want, like after a year or things like that, or after, I don't know, like it's not like you have to wait until you retire to get it. So, but it's mandatory. The principle is mandatory. So that's another thing that he proposed. The best quote about that I got from this book is, when there's global financial crisis happen all over the world, poor people do not even feel it, basically. So he went on to interview many poor people during the GFC or global financial crisis. Most of them do not even realize that there was one, because for them every year is financial crisis. Every year is financial crisis, so they don't feel the actual impact of global financial crisis. And there are so many other spectacles that the Abhijit Banerjee tried to show people in the West how it feels to be poor, basically. So he spent a lot of time trying to create some empathy, I would say, or generate some empathy for the poor people. This book was intended to be read by people in the West to give them a glimpse of how it is to be poor. So I think that's the best quote that I got from it. Every year is financial crisis for poor people. And then the next one is anything you don't like about the book. What I don't like about the book is actually, I don't know whether that's true or not. So in the last chapter, he criticized Darren Acemoglu, saying that actually democracy is not important for providing good economy. So Abhijit actually is not a proponent of democracy. He thinks political stability is not that important. And he even conducted a survey, and people actually do not care about politics. What they care about is actually economy. So democracy is not important. It's not a requirement to have good economy. He directly refuted this book, Economic Origins of Dictatorship and Democracy. However, he missed the opportunity to mention about China and Singapore, right? Because China and Singapore do not have democracy, but they still manage to be rich countries. And I think this book failed to mention about that. In comparison, he actually mentioned about Uganda. So in Uganda, he said there was a competition between mass media to expose corruption. So this is investigative journalism run by the mass media that managed to decrease the amount, the level of corruption in Uganda. So it was not the government's doing; it was actually by the press. So the political will is not that important as long as you get things done. He compared it to Indonesia. Indonesia is the one who actually have the anti-corruption committee, things like that. But the ranking, according to him, I haven't checked, the ranking of the corruption, Uganda actually still better than Indonesia. He said. So again, political power will is not doesn't equal the result. But however, in my opinion, if the press in Uganda was able to do that, that means there has to be some type of democracy in the country, right? Because if the country doesn't have democracy, the press would not be able to expose politicians who are corrupt. That would be, the balas or something, get a backlash or not backlash, some type of revenge from the government, something like that, right? So I think, although he put the example from Uganda, in my opinion, there's still some type of democracy that happened behind the mass media exposing of the corrupt politicians. So I think that was the one that I think I don't really like, when he said the political stability is not that important for good economy. The last one, if I were to read this book, I would read it as 4 out of 5. Okay, so that is it. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. What is his opinion about universal basic income?
So actually, I have a good friend who is now the proponent of universal basic income. You know what's crazy? He tried to get people to sign up for his research to get universal basic income. It was so hard for him to find the people. It's supposed to be easy, right? Okay, but anyway, universal basic income for me is, as long as it doesn't make people lazy, I think it's good. So I don't know if there's enough data to support the research about universal basic income. right? The one that was conducted in Germany, they said it was successful. So the universal basic income in Germany, if everyone gets 600 euro a month, no matter how rich or poor you are. So everyone, including celebrities or anyone, everyone gets 600 euro a month, and they tried that for 3 years. And they said the impact was really good because they got people, the economy get going, because they have 600 euro more to spend to push the wheels of the economy going. So judging from the research in Germany, I think that would be good to have universal basic income, but only if your countries can afford that. Only if your countries can afford that. Because there are 2 countries that tried to implement universal basic income and they went bankrupt. The first one was Greece. The second was Sri Lanka. Okay, so they lowered the taxes from 15% to 8% in Sri Lanka. And also Greece also lowered the tax that time. On top of the tax evasion issue. On top of tax evasion issues, they lowered the tax to the taxes half. But after that, they actually jack up their populist policy, like all of this welfare and UBI and all of this. But what happened is the government did not have enough money to actually operate the thing. So in my opinion, UBI is really good only if your country can afford it, like Germany. But other than that, I think we don't have to be in a rush to implement it if we don't have enough funds as a country.
Yeah. What is your opinion? Like Indonesia spends maybe 200 million or more on subsidizing fuel, gasoline. What if, for example, we put half of that for something similar to UBI? And do you think that will work? Because if the issue is money, typically the government spend hundreds of millions on subsidizing gasoline. So what do you think about that? Is that better spent on UBI or how?
Maybe Edo, do you have anything to say first before me?
Itu.
He said that about government giving insurance for their people. And do he compare about this kind of insurance need to be managed privately by a third party or by the government itself? Because we know that we have a problem with our BPJS system because it is managed centrally instead of managed privately.
Okay, now let's start. Okay. So it's interesting because I forgot to mention this. So in the solution, the one who gives the insurance still private companies. But the government subsidized. So the government paid to the private company. I think it was a good idea. Yeah. Although we don't know then how the government are going to pay for it, we don't know, right? But the book mentioned that the one who should run the insurance teams actually private company, and then the government pays it up. So it's outsourced. Now, talking about what Donald said, it's really complicated, right? It's really complicated. If we do not subsidize for the price fuel, then inflation also goes. I mean, wait. If we increase the price of fuel, then there will be inflation. But if we don't increase the price of fuel, then the government run on deficit, basically. So that's even worse than inflation because now it's the government who cannot shop, not the people who cannot shop. So I think there's no short-term solution for this, but the long-term solution would be we should be independent in terms of energy. We have to be independent in terms of energy, and then food security. I think there are three, right? The requirements to be a wealthy nation is you have to be independent in energy, food security, and there's one more. I forgot what it was. So we should be able to produce enough oil to make our own countries float, basically. Or if possible, maybe export it to other countries. Why are we still importing oil? Is still it's hard for me to imagine. Yeah, we should have enough oil to even run our own country, not relying on importing from others, and then be very fragile when it comes to the oil price. So I think the long term is we have to have good independence in energy and food security. So that's the long term. Anyone knows why we're not independent in energy yet? I don't know why.
Sorry, and anyone?
Anyone knows why we're not independent in terms of energy just yet, while we actually have enough oil reserve for ourselves?
Maybe because to make it's just my guess. Maybe because to make the gasoline we need technology. I mean, oil is just the crude oil, right? But you need to process it, and processing it with the refineries and making it efficient with high octane gasoline is not easy. So maybe that's why we still depend on others. My guess.
Yes, so
Oh, another
yes.
another possibility is we don't have the technology to extract oil because
However, extracting oil, the technology has been around for 100 years. Just like
oh,
extracting gold. It's been around for a long time. I actually do not believe we cannot adapt that technology. I cannot
uh,
believe.
Actually, I think our oil reserve is not that much. So I think people maybe talk too much when they say we have many oil reserve. If we compare to our other country, maybe our oil reserve is slightly lower than, let's say, Britain. So it's not that much. Of course, if we compare to even if we compare to UK, then if we compare to, let's say, USA to Middle Eastern, we are so much below. Even with country like Nigeria, we are still way below them. So in terms of territory, with our vast territory, we only have oil reserve maybe comparable to country like UK with that small territory that they have.
Is it because we don't have the technology yet to locate the reserve? Because most of our land is actually the sea. Our territory is actually the sea. And there should be, just like Brunei, it's like there should be enough. But is it the problem of locating them or what?
Yeah, that could be one thing, but for geographically itself, our region is quite a young region compared to let's say the Middle East. So that's why also the reserve in our territory is not that much. Brunei, maybe they also do not have much reserve, but it's a very dense resort, and their population and also very low compared to Indonesia. Like Malaysia also.
Can be. So there's no way we can be energy independent.
With our current number of population, there is no way. Even like USA, with comparatively same population, they have the way bigger oil reserve.
Even the US still import their oil.
Yeah.
So yeah.
yeah, actually, if if I'm not mistaken, the US import oil because they want to keep the reserve to prevent oil crisis like in 1970s. So they try to keep the reserve. They only spend the reserve recently because the gas price recently rose to maybe 120 quite high. So the president released some reserve. But other than that, they keep importing and keep the reserve for themselves. And with technology, actually, what I was thinking is technology like the name is fracking to get shale oil. So the US used to be low ranking in terms of oil production, but they recently rose to I think top 3 because they had the technology called fracking, shale oil. So they get oil where there was no big reserve. And with this technology, they became one.
The oil they import from Canada is through fracking. And they still import oil from Canada, but Canada used the fracking technique because the USA did not want to do fracking in their own soil. It's really bad for the environment, I heard, right? But then maybe recently they have no other choice but to finally do fracking, just like what Canada did. Yes,
Okay,
situation.
let's hope that fusion reactor will soon work. Okay, that we have energy independence.
Yeah, that's what we expect.
Yeah, they said geoengineering is the one that can save the energy problem if people trust them enough. People trust them enough. All right, I guess, is there any more?
Yeah, one more question. So the title of the book is Radical Rethinking of something about poverty, right? What is the most radical idea you think from the book?
Okay, let me check my note. Yeah. Actually, I will share the note. This is the one. Just like what I said, it's almost nothing new to the ideas how to make a country victorious in terms of economic. But one thing that probably can radical is actually the rule of law. How the rule of law can actually impact the economy is so big that even if we cannot implement good law, then people will not be prosperous, basically. So if there's one thing that we can do to make that happen, is actually fixing the law enforcement in our own country. And then poor people is actually capitalists without capital. So I think this one is really important. This is the reason why also microfinance is really important for the country. You know, Indonesia has been trying to implement kredit usaha rakyat, KUR, right? Even the implementation of that is very random and unfair. A lot of people who do not deserve to get KUR, but they got it. A lot of people who deserve to get it, they don't get it. So again, that's a matter of rule of law. No matter how shiny a certain policy is to lift people out of poverty, but if the implementation has so many, it's against the law, right? Then what happened? So basically, so I think first fixing the rule of law. If we can do that and implement a good policy such as giving opportunity and capital to poor people to make themselves, able to start a business and then help each other, things like that. To help each other means, they will buy from each other's business, they will benefit from each other's economic activities, things like that, right? So the first one is rule of law. Second is giving them capital in terms of loan. If it's not for free, it's loan to start their own business. This is one thing that is also funny. The clue that a certain country is actually corrupt is that when the dream job is to become government official. When most of people's dream job is to become a government official, that's a good indicator that a certain country is actually corrupt. So that's another thing. That's also rule of law. Right? So yeah, I think rule of law and microfinance, capital for people.
Does the book mention something about education?
Yes, so three things that should be for free: the insurance about education, healthcare, and the last one is protections against disasters. So these three things that he wants to make people doesn't have to be in a constant worry about what happened if I cannot continue my education, what happened if I get sick and cannot pay, what happened if there's flood coming and destroy my crops. So these three things the government must protect the citizens from. But again, that requires a lot of budget as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no more from Edo, right? Okay, good. So thank you for coming this month. And next month will be, actually I have a huge request.